Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. Do want to switch gears and kind of want to hit on a topic that is sort of a crossover NBA college basketball topic. We don't talk a ton of NBA on this podcast for obvious reasons. It was funny. I had a buddy actually reach out and say, Torres, talk more NBA. Well, downloads, interest goes down when I talk NBA, so we stick to college football, college basketball, and a little bit of the NFL here on the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. But there was an interesting crossover story over the last couple days, and it involved an NBA head coaching search with the Los Angeles Lakers. You don't need to be an NBA fan to realize Lakers were a little bit of a mess this past year. Lakers had Frank Vogel as their head coach, and the Lakers let Frank Vogel go at the end of the season. I don't know how much you can really blame Frank Vogel for everything that happened this year with the players and the roster that he was dealt. Anyway, he's been gone for about 5-6 weeks now, and it's been this weird, quiet kind of what is going on with the Lakers coaching job. There's sort of reports that Doc Rivers, could he be finagling his way out of Philadelphia to go there? Obviously, Doc Rivers does not totally feel wanted by Daryl Morey and the new regime. Also, there was a separate report that it could be down to Terry Stotts and Darvin Ham. Former, by the way, college icon Darvin Ham at Texas Tech. That was also, by the way, the first time that I have ever mentioned the name Terry Stotts on this podcast. But you're probably sitting here wondering, Torres, you told us you don't talk NBA. Why are you talking NBA? Well, it's because over the last couple weeks, there has been a name that has quietly emerged behind the scenes in basketball circles as a potential candidate with the Los Angeles Lakers, and that is Michigan head coach Juwan Howard. For people who do not know the ties, Juwan Howard was a former teammate of LeBron James. He was also an assistant coach with the Miami Heat when LeBron won a couple of his titles. So he is really plugged in with LeBron James. And if you didn't know, Rob Pelinka, the Lakers GM, also played at Michigan and was a backup to the Fab Five. So all sorts of ties. And over the last couple weeks, the name behind the scenes has started to pick up steam right up until Sunday when Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, drumroll please, said, Juwan Howard not taking the Los Angeles Lakers job. And so I want to talk a little bit about it because I will say this. I'm not trying to be college basketball guy. College basketball is the greatest sport in the world guy. But the idea that Juwan Howard was ever taking the Lakers job was just absolutely idiotic and dumb. And why is for a couple reasons. First of all, again, to be clear, I'm not trying to be Mr. College Basketball is the greatest, who would ever want to leave. No, college basketball has its problems right now. That is why we have lost Coach K, Jay Wright, and Roy Williams in the last couple of years. And I do believe as long as Juwan Howard continues to win, he will continue to field NBA opportunities. This is a guy with an NBA background, was on maybe the best coaching staff, or certainly in the best run organization, probably in the NBA, the Miami Heat for years. He's part of that Heat family with Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley. And if this guy wants to one day get back into the NBA, he is going to have no shortage of options. Great coaching background, played in the NBA, well-respected in those circles, well-respected in college basketball circles. And I just don't believe that we live in a world now where guys are going to stay in college basketball for 20, 25, 30, 40 years like Coach K did. Yeah, Jim Boeheim's going to stick around forever, but outside of him, this job just isn't built to be in this sport for 20, 30, 40 years with the constant roster turnover, the one-time transfer rule, guys coming, guys going, having to re-recruit your roster. And so I do believe that if Juwan Howard does decide does continue to have success in Michigan, that at some point he is going to be a legitimate candidate in the NBA for years upon years upon years, and that at some point he will take an NBA job. At the same time, it was never going to be now, and it was certainly never going to be the Lakers. And what I would tell you is, whether you're a Michigan fan, a college basketball fan, or somebody that just enjoys Juwan Howard, who I think's been a pretty good coach outside of, that little dust-up with the Wisconsin assistant coach, Joe Krabbenhoff, I think he's been pretty good. What I would say about Juwan Howard is if you hear NBA rumors about Juwan Howard over the next year or two, just brush him aside. Don't worry about him. Don't be concerned about him. And the reason that I do not believe that Juwan Howard is going to the NBA anytime soon is pretty straightforward. It's because he's got 2 sons in the program right now playing for him at Michigan. And if you know anything about Juwan Howard, he is very family-oriented. His wife is very involved in the program. And I just don't think that he will leave Michigan while his 2 sons are there. For people who do not know, his older son, Jace, just completed his sophomore year, will be a junior next season. His younger son, Jet, is going to be a freshman, his younger son being deemed the more probable NBA prospect. So could it be 2-3 years in college and then he pursues an NBA professional route? Absolutely. But until that time, Juwan Howard is not leaving. And I would just say in general, Juwan Howard seems genuinely happy at the college level. He obviously, we know all the background. He cried at his introductory press conference talking about how much Michigan means to him as a university. He cried on the court after Michigan won the Big Ten title. I'm not being, trying to make fun of him or be rude or be crass. This guy loves Michigan. And I believe as long as he keeps winning there, he's going to stay there for a little while. I'm not saying forever. Like I said, I don't think anybody's built to be in college basketball for 20, 30, 40 years at the same job anymore. But this is a guy that is not in a rush, and I just don't believe he's leaving anytime soon until his sons are out of the Michigan basketball program, which could be upwards of 4 years from now. Beyond that, I'm just going to say this because I got some brushback from Lakers fans on social media. If he were to leave, it certainly isn't going to be for the Lakers, and it's certainly not going to be right now. And it's really funny because obviously when this report came out, the Lakers fans were sitting there saying, this isn't the guy that we wanted anyway. Well, guess what? Doesn't matter whether y'all wanted him or not. It was clear your team was interested, and it was clear he was not interested. And I do wonder at this point, and I've seen all sorts of people talk about it, kind of in NBA circles, and this is where we're going to get into a little bit more into the NBA. We'll get back to Juwan in a minute. I kind of wonder how good that Lakers job is, right? You don't have to be an NBA diehard to know it is not easy to be a Laker right now. First of all, the team just stunk this past year. I think I told this story on the podcast, but it was funny because during the play-in round of the playoffs, so when Minnesota won that big game, Pat Beverly's jumping on the podium or jumping on the scorer's table, when the New Orleans Pelicans had success, when all these teams that played in the play-in game, I was in Vegas with my mom, and we were kind of watching the games. And she's asking me, what is these play-ins? What is this? Have they always done this? And I said, it's kind of new, but they kind of have teams 7 through 10 play for the final 2 playoff spots in each conference. And she said, oh, cool. Like, oh, by the way, I haven't been paying too much attention. Where are the Lakers? And I said, well, they didn't even make the playoff this year and play in this year. And she goes, wait a second. They didn't even make the play-in? So you're telling me they weren't even in the top 10 in the Western Conference in the NBA? And I was like, that's right, Mom. I hadn't really thought about the fact that you had to be outside the top 10 to not even make the play-in. But that is how bad the Los Angeles Lakers were. And there's really no reason to think that this thing is going to get better. Looking at this whole thing in the big picture, one, LeBron is still great, but LeBron is about to be 38 years old. And I got some pushback on this on social media. I don't really care. The bottom line is this guy is still a very talented player, but he ain't the guy that he once was. And so you're building a team around him. You're building a team around Anthony Davis who can't stay healthy. LeBron, by the way, increasingly can't stay healthy. Played 56 games, I believe, this year. And I understand that some of it had to do with the fact that by the end of the season they just shut it down. But it's not as though this guy is going to be fully healthy for 81, 82 games like he has been. Closing in on 38 years old, as I said, Anthony Davis can't stay healthy. And we still got to figure out what the heck's going on with Russell Westbrook, right? I don't think there's very many takers with Russell Westbrook. But even if there are, you're going to have to take back some bad players and some bad contracts. And so I sit there and say, how good is this Lakers job right now? Like, it's very fascinating in these playoffs right now to watch the Golden State Warriors versus the Los Angeles Lakers. Because the Golden State Warriors, about 2 or 3 years ago, they lose KD, Klay Thompson gets hurt, Steph gets hurt early in the season, and they basically just were like, you know what? We'll be bad for a few years, get some draft picks, hopefully hit on them, and we will kind of rebuild our way through the draft. And some of it worked out in their favor. They got Jordan Poole late in the first round one year, but they also were very smart. They took on Andrew Wiggins' contract. They got a draft pick back, which ended up being Jonathan Kuminga, who is a rising guy in this league. Moses Moody from Arkansas was their own pick last year after not making the playoffs. And it's funny to compare that to the Lakers, who have gone all in on LeBron, all in on his crew, And as it always is with LeBron, when you take LeBron, you ain't building for the next 5 years. You're building for right now, the second. And I looked it up. It's going to be really tough to rebuild, and that's part of this as well. So you're stuck with LeBron, who can be gone in a year or two if he wants to be. I don't think he will be. Anthony Davis, who's hurt. Russell Westbrook, who's a mess. And you have no way to get younger, talented players into the organization like Golden State did over the last couple years. You have no chance because you've given away all your draft picks to get the guys that you have on your roster. So first of all, if they had, obviously I understand why they traded for Anthony Davis. But never forget that in the process of not only trading Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and all those guys to the Pelicans, they also traded 4 first-round picks. So this year, if they had that pick, it would be number 8 overall. You'd have a chance to get Ben Mathurin from Arizona, Johnny Davis from Wisconsin, Shaedon Sharpe, whoever you deem to be a guy that's young and can contribute to an aging core of a roster. Now they don't have that pick. They don't have their 2024 first-round pick, which is going to the Pelicans. And the Pelicans can pick swap in 2023 and 2025, meaning that if the Pelicans have success, they can switch picks with the Lakers, and the Lakers may be picking in the 20s again. So you have an aging roster. You have an aging superstar that doesn't realize that guys don't really want to play with him. They're kind of tired of his nonsense, and it's a lot of drama. They don't have a coach right now, and they don't have any way to make this better. And I was thinking about this as it pertained to Juwan Howard, to bring it back to Juwan Howard. If you're talking about the best jobs in the NBA right now, right? It's funny. We always do this in college basketball, college football. What are the best jobs? Well, in football, it's Ohio State and LSU and Georgia and Alabama and USC. College basketball, it's Kentucky, North Carolina, Kansas, Duke, in some order. And so I bring it up because if you're talking about NBA jobs right now, the Lakers are usually one of the best jobs. I think you can argue it's actually one of the worst jobs in the NBA right now. Like, think about all of the teams that are in the NBA right now and all of what you could do. Like, if all the jobs were open right now with the rosters as they're constructed, where would the Lakers fall in terms of jobs that you would want? Because I think it'd actually be pretty low. Now, it wouldn't be like the worst. It wouldn't be Sacramento. It wouldn't be Orlando. But if you're choosing between, say, the Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic over the next 5 years or the roster that the Lakers have, I think I'd take the Mavericks job. If you're picking Memphis versus the Lakers, you got a young Ja Morant, Brandon Clark, all those young guys, Jaren Jackson, I'm probably taking the Memphis job. I don't know. How about the Boston Celtics with Jason Tatum, the Bucks with Giannis? You could go on and on and on down the list. I think the Lakers would be the bottom half to the bottom third in terms of jobs if they came open. And so if Juwan Howard does leave sometime soon, I don't think it's going to be for the Lakers. I don't think Juwan Howard's leaving anytime soon, but I did think it was a funny conversation that this guy would just be tripping over his own feet to take the Lakers job. That couldn't be furthest from the truth, and I'm just telling you the truth. If all these jobs open up right now, I'm not sure that the Lakers would be at the top of the priority list.